I don't understand how you can argue that the Ukraine side is winning and is on the upside when since October 2023 to this month, Russia has been nonstop taking Ukrainian territory. It has never stopped. Sometimes it's been small, sometimes it's been medium, sometimes it's been huge. And this past month, the month of May, was the biggest one since November of last year. And they're continuing on the opposite. You see in the Sumy region in the north, the Russians are continuing to advance. After they retook all of the Kursk area, now then they're continuing to move further south. And then the Kupiansk area and the Kharkiv area, the Zaporizhia area, everywhere you want to measure, Russia continues to move forward. Ukraine continues to lose troops every day. Ukraine doesn't have the manpower to ever fight an attritional war and win with the Russian side. They don't have the industrial capacity. We're going to see that validated in just a second. But all of these things that go into winning battles, campaigns, and a war are all on the Russian side. And this is a black eye for Russia, but it doesn't affect their operational capacity at all. It doesn't at all. So that's the reality that we need to understand as we enter into this discussion here today, because especially in the glowing aftermath of this success yesterday, Volodymyr Zelensky went to Vilnius today to a summit of many European leaders. And of course, he always has the place of honor there. And he made a big speech. I'm going to show you several clips from that speech because there's some really important things that are illuminated that he may not have intended, but we need to understand. And so instead of like the majority of the Western media, which just puts his sound bites out there without any context, we're going to provide that for you here. And the first one I want to look at here is that he says that we have arrived at a special moment.
This is a special moment. On the one hand, Russia has launched its summer offensive, but on the other hand, they are being forced to engage in diplomacy. And this is both a challenge and a real opportunity for us all, a chance to try to end this war.
Okay, I like the fact that he wants to end this war. That's one of the things we've been advocating forever. The question is, how are you going to go about doing it? And what are the conditions necessary to end this war? By the way, folks, be sure and like and subscribe if you haven't done that. I know we've got a lot of new folks watching here in the last couple of days. Welcome to our show. We'd love to have you come back and forth by hitting that like and subscribe button. You'll be able to get more content and analysis like this. But let's look at that. So he claims in that first stand here that his actions have forced Russia to the peace table. Well, now that's a little bit, that'll become as a surprise to Vladimir Putin, because on the 11th of May, it was Putin who suggested these direct negotiations. There had been no direct contact between the Russian and Ukraine side since since April of 2022. And so because of Putin had said and in response to a demand for an unconditional 30-day ceasefire by Zelensky and many of the European leaders on the, I want to say it was the 10th of May, Putin, instead of saying yes to that, he said, how about we have direct negotiations? No conditions for direct negotiations. We'll have these talks. We'll have them in Istanbul. And so that's what led into it. So what is he even talking about, Zelensky, that he has forced Russia into the negotiations? To be clear, not just these direct negotiations. Russia has been trying to negotiate virtually the entire time, going all the way back to 2014. When the first talks about the Minsk agreements ended up starting. And then in 2015, when they agreed to them, every year since that, every year from that point forward to 2021, where it looked like it was getting closer to war. And again, they said, here is a negotiated deal that we're offering, a treaty that we're offering in December 2021, which we rejected. And then again at Istanbul the first time in March and April of 2022. And of course, you've heard me say many times since, there's been a bunch of opportunities ever since. We always reject them. Russia has never been the one that's refused to talk. It's Zelensky, in fact, who I want to say it was the early fall, I think of 2022, that he wrote a law forbidding Ukraine to even talk directly to Russia as long as Vladimir Putin was in office. So who has been the one that has been not wanting to talk and has had to be forced to the table? I think you know the answer to that. But of course, many people, hardly anyone, actually a better statement in the West, is aware of all that history I've just shown you. And so they hear Zelensky say that and they just accept it as true because well, we've already been told he's the good guy and Putin's the evil guy. So obviously everything he says is true. We're trying to correct that situation here. So we recognize that there's not a good and evil guy in this. There are two guys. There are two leaders of their countries. They have their own interest and their own motivations. They say and do whatever they think is going to succeed for them. And it's not America's war. So we should not be a friend of one and hate the other one. We should say, what is America's interest in this? What do we benefit or gain or lose depending on various outcomes, and then make sure we protect our interest. But let's don't join with the losing side and supporting them and taking their narrative in contradiction to reality on the ground. That is something that we shouldn't do. Let's continue on there. So then the next thing is Zelensky said that, oh, by the way, hey, our stuff and Western stuff and America stuff, it's better than Russia's.
Europe, together with America, has better weapons than Russia. We also have stronger tactical solutions. Our Operation Spiderweb yesterday proved that. Russia must feel what its losses mean. That is what will push it toward diplomacy. And when Russia takes losses in this war, it's obvious to everyone that Ukraine is the one holding the line, not just for itself, but for all of Europe.
Okay, this is the continue on of a theme that Zelensky has been saying from the outset of the war. We're not just fighting for us. We're fighting for you guys. It's all about you. We're defending you. We're the bulwark. We're the line of the wall that's defending all of Europe. So we need your help, because if we fall here, all of you guys are going to be next. Even though we'll also simultaneously mock Russia for not being able to advance very far because we say that they can't get anything done, but then we also claim at the same time that they're ready to take on all of Europe, and only the Ukraine stopping them here is going to save us all. As a matter of fact, we actually have a recent clip of this. This is the view even from the United States. Gary, I'm throwing this a little bit out of order there, but if we can pull up Jack Keane here, because he addressed that very issue earlier.
Russia is not giving up the fight because they believe they can win. Even though 39 months into this thing, they haven't been able to take Ukraine. Think about that. That's how long we fought in World War II to get rid of the Nazis in Europe. Yeah. So it's really quite remarkable.
Yeah, so he's mocking them. I mean, literally, the mocking tone in the voice, the little chuckle, etc. That, haha, Russia hadn't been able to win this war in 39 months, and we won World War II in this same period of time, or something close to it. Okay, little historical context. First of all, as we have been talking about on this show just in recent weeks, the Soviet Union had the lion's share of the defeat of the Nazi Germany. In World War II. I think it was somewhere around 70% of the German casualties came as a result of fighting in the Soviets, and we came in relatively late and provided a very valuable service in very, very difficult fighting. But let's keep it in context. We fought that long, and the Russian side lost, depending on which source you want to look at, somewhere between 20 and 40 million people in fighting and defeating the Nazis in here, and we suffered about total of 400,000 in all of World War II from both illnesses and disease, as well as being killed in combat in both the Asia Pacific theater and in the European theater. So it's not like we won it on our own and we got it done in a short period of time. The Soviet Union had something to do with that. But in this case here, we need to understand here. See, too many people in the West view this as, those little Ukrainians, stood up to this mammoth war juggernaut of the Russians, and they have been able to hold them off there. And that just mocks the Russians because they can't do it. Well, okay, first of all, that the Ukrainian army, other than Russia, is the biggest land army on the continent. They are bigger than most of Europe put together in terms of number of troops, and definitely in terms of experience, etc. They're somewhere between 700,000 and 800,000 total active forces in their used throughout the country here. So they are a huge country, and they're backed, as we brag throughout this conflict, by 50 nations, by the United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, Italy. I mean, and all the rest of them. Continue to give them support, training, intelligence, long-range fires, all kinds of advice, and all kinds of physical war support. We've just about done everything except squeeze triggers, and apparently we've even done some of that on the long-range fire. So it is not the little guy against the big guy. It is the NATO using this as a proxy war, and all of their resources, and we're talking millions of artillery rounds, 500 million actual number of bullets and machine gun bullets and rifle bullets, etc., all that stuff combined, plus tens of thousands of combat vehicles, all by the Western country that they put inside Ukraine to be used by the Ukrainians. So this is a massive support on one side and a massive support on the other. So that by itself is no indication. There were no drones in World War II, as a matter of fact, not in the European theater, of course. There were no nuclear weapons employed there, but they exist here today. So there is a radical difference between what happened in World War II and what's going on here. So before you want to mock Russia on the one hand and then raise them up as this demon on the other hand that we need to be afraid of, get your story straight is the bottom line here. Let's go. It's a couple of other things that Zelensky said here. That not only are we better here, are we really better? When you look at how has the M1A1 performed in this war, how has the British Challenger, the German Leopard, the French AMX-10, all of the combat vehicles we have, the Bradley, the Stryker vehicle, the M109 Paladin self-propelled artillery piece, the German Howitzer 2000, I believe, etc., French artillery piece, all of this stuff put together, they have performed admirably. But when you compare it to how the Russian side is it really better? I would say it's pretty close to a wash. I think it really matters how it's used in combat, and both sides have shown they're quite vulnerable. And so for Zelensky to say our stuff is better is just, I think, a sop to the U.S. and to the Europe to just say, bragging on them, saying, yeah, and I need more of it. One of the other things he's talking about there, he said, we're also better tactically. Wait a minute. All right, that's where I'm going to take an even stronger stand here. You mean like you did at Bakhmut, in Avdiivka, and in Krinky, and in the Kursk offensive and in the Belgorod offensive that you've done, where all of those were complete and utter disasters. It came at the cost of tens of thousands of your countrymen. Pointless battles that didn't need to be fought. Battles that should have been withdrawn from earlier and weren't because of tactical malfeasance and operational malfeasance on the part of their senior leaders, both uniformed and civilian. And so you have performed horrifically during this war. And so don't be claiming success at the tactical level now over the Russians, who have clearly shown that from a terrible performance, in my view, in the first 9 to 12 months of the war, they have made substantial changes and increased extraordinary capacity in the tactical area as they go through evolutions of drone warfare, figuring out how to do offensive and defensive fights effectively in the nature or the era of drone warfare, which dramatically changes how wars are fought. So we didn't have to deal with that in World War II. We still don't know how to deal with it, even though we're watching what's going on here. There is no replacement for combat experience under these conditions. So nothing that Zelensky said there is accurate, and it can be validated by just looking at the realities on the ground here. Okay, next is that Zelensky was saying, and this is where he's going to kind of admit something that's actually surprisingly accurate and true, is that the best that they can do is provide about 40% of their own weapons and ammunition supplies.
Ukraine can cover up to 40% of its weapons need with domestic production, but this requires stable funding. Our operations show how much impact investments, especially in drones, can have. And we still urgently need air defense, especially Patriot systems and missiles for them. Each of you knows what we need and what you can do to help.
Yeah, see, now he's right in a couple of factors there that I'm who knows if he can actually provide 40%. That might be an exaggeration. He usually exaggerates things, so it may not even be 40. But let's just give him the benefit of the doubt in this one case and say that you can actually provide 40%. What that tells you is that for them to continue to fight into perpetuity for the rest of this year into next year, if it goes that long, they are going to need profound amounts. 60% of the total needs have to continuously come from the West. They have to give all that stuff, all that categories of weapon systems I just mentioned. It's got to continue, because it's all, every time you fight, you keep losing its stuff. Russia does. The Ukraine side does as well. Well, when was the last time you heard about an M1 tank being given to the Ukraine side, or a Challenger tank, or a Leopard? It's been a long time. And as we see, you're going to have a steady supply of them. And Ukraine is they're trying, I know they do have a domestic arms production, but you see, even by their own admission, it's a very small percentage. So who's going to be stepping up with that stuff? And one of the categories he specifically mentioned was Patriot air defense systems. Now, he was also right when he said, and you guys know that, he has been begging, pleading, just doing everything he can, prostrating himself on the ground to get air defense weapons and Patriots specifically for months. Actually, you could say years, but in the last number of months especially, he's been quite emphatic for obvious reasons. Well, the United States does in fact know that he wants that, and there's a reason why we haven't given it to him, according to Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Is the president, and are you prepared to pass another supplemental bill to support them?
Well, that's a different decision. That's a different question. That's not up for me to decide. The White House would have to make a determination about whether to come to Congress for a supplemental. But everything that's been approved and congressionally appropriated is ongoing. In fact, to the extent that the Ukrainians have asked for anything additional, what they've asked for is air defenses, Patriot units, which frankly we don't have. But we are working closely with our NATO allies. There are NATO allies that do have some batteries of Patriot missiles that they could provide or transfer over to the Ukrainians to defend, for example, the airspace of Kyiv and other places. And we've been encouraging in that front and working alongside our partners there to get deliveries of some of these systems. As you can imagine, none of these countries want to give up their Patriot systems either.
Yeah, and they haven't.